So those are some shots of your university, and I hope they bring back some happy memories of your time here. Now, the main reason for making this video is to record your graduation. Today, you join the graduates of the university, and at the moment, those are about 80,000 in all. Moreover, they come from all countries, and they're now spread in all corners of the world. So this is a university, not just a university of the United Kingdom, but a university that is recognized worldwide. It is a large university and an important one, and in graduating from it, you've done well. We, of course, like all other universities in the United Kingdom, are at the moment under some pressure. Society is wishing its universities to change, and the University of Manchester is no exception. So continuously, we have to move forward to adapt to what is required and to abandon what is no longer required. We believe we're doing that. But there are one or two things that remain constant and can't be changed. We, when we educate our students from this university, are very keen that they should be able to do various important things. They should be able to marshal fact, develop argument, and above all, I think, have a regard for the truth. And we hope we've done that as far as you're concerned. But enough of all that, now on to the video of the graduation itself. The first thing I wanted to do today, of course, is to welcome you all here to Manchester for this ceremony for the conferment of degrees. I'm very, very pleased that the weather is good and we won't all be picking our way around the puddles which form on the university campus, and we won't be living under umbrellas. So that at least is one good thing to count for today. I'd like to welcome, apart from all the parents and friends of those who are going to graduate, two people in particular, the Lord Lieutenant of the County of Greater Manchester, who's with us today, and also the Lord Mayor of the City of Manchester. It's very, very nice to see them here, and welcome. Now, I'm not going to make a long speech at this point, but I thought I might just give you a gloss on what's going to happen in the course of this particular ceremony. In fact, this ceremony is a hybrid. Like many universities, like all universities, I guess, we give honorary degrees, and those honorary degrees are to celebrate the achievements of people who are close to the university or close to the community in which the university lives and does its work. And today we will be giving 4 honorary degrees to Mrs. Dacre-Kodia, to Gordon Hainsworth, to Stuart Hall, and to Rab Telfer. Now, each of those honorary graduands will be introduced by the presenter, and after that I'll formally give them their degree. And then from that point we move straight into the more regular degree awarding ceremony, first doctorates and master's degrees, and then subsequently degrees for undergraduates who are today graduating from the normal courses in the universities. The names of those people will be presented by the individual deans and heads of departments, and so there's quite a lot of coming and going on the platform at that stage as these various people are brought forward. So I hope that all of you who are getting degrees today will find it a memorable day. I can very well remember myself the occasion of my degree rather too many years ago. But I think enough of this. Let us get on with the ceremony.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, our first graduand, like the good Mr. Kipling, makes exceedingly good cakes. Secondly, throughout her lifetime as a professional nurse, she has always got on extremely well with all the medical staff with whom her daily duties have brought her into contact, and she has earned their respect. Surely, these 2 outstanding qualities alone merit the award of an honorary degree. But of course, there's much more to relate. Since coming to this country from Jamaica as a young woman, Mrs. Dacre-Kodia has carved out a name of distinction for herself in the social history of this region. The primary thrust of much of her efforts has been on behalf of various ethnic minorities within our community, particularly, but not exclusively, those of Afro-Caribbean origin. Her work in this field has embraced both advocacy of a singularly articulate nature and down-to-earth practical action. And a few examples must suffice. She has been responsible for the establishment here in Manchester of the West Indies Centre. She campaigned successfully for the establishment of Carioca, a joint scheme involving City Council and the Department of the Environment to help more than 100 small businesses run by West Indian incomers to get soundly on their feet. She also secured a substantial grant to fund an Afro-Caribbean housing association, which concentrated on housing which, although of modest cost, was nonetheless of good quality. Not surprisingly, someone who could achieve these minor miracles was an obvious candidate for service on important bodies such as the North West Conciliation Committee back in 1972, the Committee of Inquiry into the Moss Side Riots, and the West Indian Organisations Coordinating Committee, Manchester area, of which she is currently chairman. In many of her roles, she has clearly been one of the main advisors to our City Council on ethnic and racial matters. They certainly could get no better advice. All of these activities and many more items of voluntary service, of course, have consumed much time, but not to the neglect of her primary career. For she has a most distinguished record of experience in health visiting and district nurse, as well as the hospital sector, in which she rose rapidly through the ranks to occupy the most senior clinical status, which in modern bureaucratic parlance is some prosaic and imposing title, but which we would more understand by the term matron. That our graduate has proved herself a leading expert in her own profession surely gives her that extra bit of authority, if any is needed, in her public advisory roles. Now, so far, I have concentrated on Mrs. Dacocodia's ethnic-orientated work, but to single this out alone would be to do her an injustice, for her concern and her efforts have a much wider human and humane scope. Indeed, her commitment is to the complete community in which she serves. And in this wider context, here once again the precepts of the nurse are manifest: service in relation to need. Who better now to serve as Vice Chairman for the Manchester Council for Voluntary Services? How does she manage all this? What's her style? What's her technique? Well, there's no doubt that over the years she has mastered the art of committee work. It would be no surprise to learn that she got distinction in psychology during her training course because she has perfect timing. She knows when to jump in during debate, and most subtly, she knows when to stop or to remain eloquently silent. She always does her homework and has never knowingly been caught inadequately briefed. She likes to make things work and to work efficiently, and she uses pleasant persuasion and her own personal charm, a combination sure to melt even the strongest of resistance. But she herself is not deluded by misplaced flattery. On one occasion, on being warmly commended on the opening of a ward for the elderly by a very senior and important visitor from the DHSS, our graduand launched into a lengthy lecture pointing out that the ward was no good at all for rehabilitation. It didn't have either the right equipment or adopt the right policies. Now, the immediate reaction of one of Mrs. Dacocodia's colleagues on being asked about her was, "I don't know how she finds time to do the housework, but she does. I've already referred to the cakes, and there is, I assure you, abundant other evidence that she does manage to fit this in as well. There's even time left over for the most lively of parties, where her love of music and dance, of which she is a great exponent, and her well-developed sense of humor truly shine forth." Vice-Chancellor, the present-day human wealth of a great city, mirroring that of the whole nation, is the result of centuries of mixing and merging of individuals and of cultures. The process continues today, and as the pages of its history are written, the name of our graduate features prominently. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the University, I present to you for the degree of Master of Arts, honoris causa, Luis Adassa da Cocodia.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, honoris causa. Very many congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, one would need to be an introvert stranger from the most remote part of this country, passing at speed through the region with blinkers on and a forward stoop, to be unaware of our next graduande's activities. He is, of course, a horologist of renown, a fine art connoisseur of discrimination, a motor racing enthusiast of some élan, a football supporter of passion, and quite a good cook. Then, on the business side, he lays claim to being a company director and indeed a managing director, first of a video information firm and the second of a travel company. It is, however, to Mr. Hall's evening job that we must turn for the real expression of his great personality and his being the champion of the Northwest. For some years now, he has come before us each evening on BBC television to update us on all of importance that has been happening throughout the region, to cheer us up and often to exhort us to do better as far as giving to charity, supporting a local industry, honing our artistic talents, or tidying up the place a bit is concerned. And that he does it so effectively and with such great good humour is a tribute to his fine professionalism. Now, those of a cultural bent will recall with affection his rumbustious efforts in a series called It's a Knockout, and the Royal Spectacular at Alton Towers. But it is not only first-class light entertainment at which he excels. When the BBC came to produce serious documentaries on, for example, the 50th anniversary of Manchester Airport and the all-important Manchester Olympics bid, there could be no better choice than our graduand for the important role of anchor man. And he is also, of course, featured in a landmark QED programme. His other great involvement in broadcasting has been a lengthy Sunday afternoon session devoted to sport around the world, to personalities and to music. Now, his sports accent has been on football, as we might expect from someone who was once on Crystal Palace's books, though it is not clear whether it was their good ones. At times, his verbal accounts of better quality matches have reached lyrical heights, laced with hyperbolic quotations from Keats and from Shakespeare. And whether or not these were at all times completely accurate or apposite, no one cared to mention, for they were at all times most colourful. Mr. Hall, it would appear, has always displayed a colourful personality, from making a theatrical entrance into this world on Christmas Day, what else? At the age of 2, prodding 6 dozen walnut loaves in his father's bakery in Ashton to make them more decorative, testing the resources of Glossop Grammar School to near destruction, putting a similar strain on the Faculty of Technology of this university, and thereafter blazing his way to the summit in the art of communication in this region and indeed nationwide. Colour there always is in his sartorial presentation, ever elegant, with albeit a slight reluctance shown by collar and shirt to favour the same part of the colour spectrum. Our graduate does not do things by halves. When he demonstrated the baking of bread on television during a baker's strike, he got over 2,000 requests for the recipe. On another occasion, he overwhelmed even himself by preparing a 100-weight Christmas pudding in a bowl designed by the makers for £28. His collection of clocks contains several which are so unique as to feature in the Guinness Book of Records. His involvement in charity work, both local and national, is prodigious. For in addition to the well-publicized campaigns such as the Christmas collections for the elderly, he is trustee and or patron of more than 30 separate charity concerns. Many of these offer real practical help to both the young and the old. And indeed, it is difficult to think of a single worthwhile cause in this region with which he is not deeply and actively involved. Mr. Hall's motto has been quoted as, "Life is for living, but don't get caught at it." Today, we are all very glad that he has been caught at it. And it is for his many signal contributions to the good and worthy aspects of life in the Northwest that we ask him to honour us by becoming a full, permanent member of this university. With only a moment's hesitation do I venture to offer to this aficionado of the quotation the following 2 examples. The first, referring to Boswell's Johnson, "I have tried too in my time to be a philosopher, but I don't know how. Cheerfulness has always broken through." Second, from nearer home, Wordsworth, "Spontaneous wisdom breathed by health, truth breathed by cheerfulness." Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the University, I present to you for the degree of Master of Arts honoris causa, James Stuart Hall.
By virtue of the authority vested on me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts honoris causa.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, upon the education of the people of this country, the fate of this country depends, said Disraeli. To which added Ruskin, "To make your children capable of honesty is the beginning of education." It would be difficult to find anyone more forthright in pursuing the latter in the cause of the former than our next graduate. as he has gone from one position to another in the educational sphere, he has acquired a reputation for forceful, plain speaking, which permits of no uncertainty about what he thinks of the matter in hand. Colleagues have been heard to say that he calls a spade a shovel, and one is indeed lucky if it remains unqualified. But then he comes from Leeds. After schooling in his native city, Mr. Hainsworth had the privilege of attending a 2-year finishing school called National Service. And his graphic accounts of his experiences during that time, even allowing for colourful embellishment, portray a not too happy interlude. Then on to Trinity College, Cambridge, where he read history. And to show how pleased he was with this return to civilization and giving the lie to his Yorkshire origins, he gladly parted with the required sum a year or two later to convert the BA to an MA. After a series of teaching posts in Leeds first, later in Birmingham, and then in the West Riding, he became administrative assistant to the Leeds Local Education Authority. And in 1969, came to Manchester for the first time as Assistant Education Officer. He was spirited away from us for a brief spell of 2 years to be Under Secretary Education of the Association of Metropolitan Authorities, but back again, 1976, as Deputy Education Officer in Manchester. With a facility for always moving on, bordering on restlessness, he was off next to Gateshead as Director of Education, and in 1983, his return yet again to Manchester as Chief Education Officer was hailed by some, perhaps a little irreverently, as the second coming. To succeed in such a rapid progression of positions as he has most certainly done demands a rare blend of lively intellect, fertility of ideas, and the ability to implement them. These ingredients our graduate has in very good measure, plus an encyclopedic memory for detail and the capacity to put others very quickly at their ease. A further asset is his enviable ability to master and digest even the most wordy of complicated documents and distill the essence of them into a few well-chosen and often quite down-to-earth words. In the past, Mr. Hainsworth has been given to speculating about his own and colleagues' future moves while on trains or when stranded at stations, notably at Crewe. Perhaps it was this subliminal brainwashing which fostered his attraction to the Manchester area, for, like many adopted citizens, he has come to be a most staunch defender of its interests, so much so that he is now its chief executive. It may take a little time before the full extent of his fine contributions to the Manchester education scene is fully appreciated. Notable achievements are the Educational Development Service, which attracted signals of approval from HM inspectors of schools, the reorganization of all schools at the secondary level, and the powerful influence on the Northern Group's approach to the GCSE, and in particular regarding records of achievement. All of these topics he has taken on board with passion. But even this word is insufficient to describe his depth of concern regarding equal opportunity. Although much of his time is, of course, devoted to work, our graduate ensures that there is some time left over for family and relaxation pursuits. Having enjoyed to the full the responsibilities of parenthood, he now repeats the experience vicariously in the person of his granddaughter. Not content with supporting one football team, he distributes his enthusiasm between two, one in Manchester and the other, of course, in Leeds. At cards, although he favours bridge, most of his friends feel he would be much better at poker. His reading preference is not surprisingly for history and historical novels. And although walking and golf are also cited among his interests, it appears that quite sensibly he doesn't carry either to excess. Our graduates' impact on education in Manchester has been large and beneficent and is likely to endure. It has already been recognized by many individuals. It is timely for this Centre of Education to add its own voice of acclaim. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the University, I present to you for the degree of Master of Arts honoris causa, Gordon Hainsworth.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts honoris causa.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, when in 1984 our next graduate was appointed as director of the Manchester Business School, he took this as an invitation to rebuild the school both spiritually and physically. Much structural rearrangement followed. By this time, Dr. Telfer had already acquired the reputation as the country's leading authority on the conservation of energy. And, not unnaturally, in the reconstruction program, a degree of prominence was given to replacement of the school's heating machinery with a state-of-the-art, electronically monitored, computer-controlled system. Within hours of this being brought into action, the initial panic that an epidemic of some mysterious fever might have swept through the staff of the school was allayed by the discovery that the sensors were connected in reverse, so that the hotter it became, the more heat was produced. Having used his great scientific skills to initiate and design the sophisticated system, he now brought his other great talent, common sense, to bear on the diagnosis and correction of the very human error. This happy combination of qualities was demonstrated from an early age. For after school in Bathgate, which is on the Glasgow side of Edinburgh, he went on to graduate from Edinburgh University with not only first-class honours BSc in chemistry, but also a handful of prestigious prizes. Taking an especial interest in carbohydrate chemistry, he then pursued a research program which led to a PhD. Not surprisingly, ICI, a chemical firm, showed an interest in him, and there followed 30 years in a range of senior, technical, commercial, and business posts within this organization. In 1976, he became chairman of the Petrochemicals Division, responsible for all oil and gas interests, energy purchases throughout Europe, and the multi-divisional site at Wilton. And during this period, he was also a member of the board of Phillips Imperial Petroleum Limited, and his division obtained the Queen's Award for Export Achievement and the first Energy Manager of the Year Award. Then in 1981, he moved to become chairman and managing director of Mather and Platt Limited, covering the UK and European business interests of this and its associated Australian company, the Wormald Group, with respect to rotating machinery, fire engineering, security, and electronics. However, it may well be that this Australian connection had much to do with our graduates deciding to leave after only 3 years to come to the business school. It seems that the Antipodean directors were unable accurately to calculate the time difference between our two countries and would regularly phone Dr. Telfer for highly sophisticated detailed information at 3 a.m. So, having survived one culture shock in working with the Australians, he must have been now reasonably prepared for a further one on coming to the university environment. And that he did react not altogether favourably to his new environment is just hinted at by some of his own alleged utterances. E.g., I now understand why, when a dictator of either left or right persuasion takes over a country, the first thing he does is shoot the academics. And on being told that one of his professors had just blown his brains out, his reply, I didn't think any of them was that good a shot. In spite of such jibes, those who do represent the academic side of the business school are the first to acknowledge the many excellent innovations and improvements he introduced to the school, notable among them being the restructuring of the Business School Council, albeit with its heavy reliance on the ICI mafia. As if directing the business school was not of itself sufficient occupation, during the 4 years he was with us, Dr. Telfer continued his very active service to the government on energy conservation. Being in turn chairman of the Advisory Council on Energy Conservation, member of the Advisory Council on Research and Development for Fuel and Power, and personal advisor to the Secretary of State for Energy. He continues to date to keep close links with industry and commerce in many ways. For a man so dedicated to energy conservation, he seems unduly profligate in the expenditure of his own personal share of this commodity, for his recreations are gardening, swimming, and hill walking. He regularly walked to the business school from his home at St. John's Gardens, and those of us who know well the intervening stretch of countryside between these 2 points marvel enviously at the spiritual refreshment which must have been added to the physical exercise by this highly aesthetic experience. The artistic side of his personality is revealed by his fondness for poetry and his outstanding collection of decorative eggs. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, today, as never before, we are conscious of the importance of close integration between the university and the world of trade, of business, and of commerce. What is even more important is that we concentrate on the best standards in both spheres. Today, we have with us in one person the exemplification of both of these. The Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the university, I present to you for the degree of Master of Business Administration, honoris causa, Robert Gilmer Jimison Telfer.
by virtue of the authority vested in me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Business Administration honoris causa.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of the University, I present to you for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, John Nigel Albiston.
Hold on.
Andrew David Bass.
Hold on.
Peter Roger Courtney.
Hold on.
Christopher Gerard Harrison.
Hold on.
Martin Hoggard. John Brian Hoyes. Ali Jamasebi Jaromi. Christopher Knight. Julian Timothy Spencer.
Hold on.
Farshid Taleb.
Hold on.
And Martin John Whitehead.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of the University, I present to you for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, John Robert Brandon.
Well done.
Timothy Edward Clayfield.
Well done.
Yokel Jen.
Well done.
Israel Owajima Owati.
Well done.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of the University, I present to you for the degree of Master of Science, Patricia Ann Asbury.
Well done.
Sean David Cochran.
Well done.
Mohammed Jahangir Ikram.
Well done.
Kuanhatai Justanont.
Well done.
Sri Ayalavan Thedchana Murthy.
Well done.
Elias Na. Philip James Naylor.
Well done.
Fadel Ahmed Takrori.
Well done.
Muhammad Tajamal. And Philip Woodall.
Well done.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of the University, I present to you for the degree of Master of Science, Mubashir Yad Ahmed.
Well done.
Diane Guan Hong Ing.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of the University, I present to you for the degrees of Bachelor of Science with honours in the School of Electronic and Electrical Engineering and of Master of Engineering in the Faculty of Science, Paul Zenon Bernat.
Well done.
Stephen John Burrows. Peter Allen Kane.
Well done.
Antonio Angelo Costantino.
Well done.
Peter James Cox. Alfred Neil Fletcher.
Well done.
Amy Samantha Getchka.
Well done.
Michael Hales.
Well done.
Gary Stewart Humber.
Well done.
Timothy John Ainsley Jones.
Well done.
Ian Lowry.
Well done.
Richard John McCarthy.
Well done.
Matthew Robert Proctor. And Paul Stephen Thompson.
Well done.
And for the degree of Bachelor of Engineering in the Faculty of Science, Paul John Floyd.
Well done.
Hui Hong Jim Kerry Lee.
Well done.
Timothy Adrian Smith.
Well done.
Philip Andrew Chan.
Well done.
Wing Kwong Chan.
Well done.
Christopher Mulenga Chilesi.
Well done.
Barry Pierce Fowler. Andrew John Fryatt.
Well done.
Raju Gurung. Anita Lynn Kelsall.
Well done.
Andrew So Ming Locke. Deborah Maloney.
Well done.
Michael John Mould.
Well done.
Paul Stewart.
Well done.
Kai Cho Benny Tam.
Well done.
Samantha Jane Webber.
Well done.
Lee Graham Williams, Dawn Avril Acott,
Well done.
Muqsood Zaman Ahmed, Joe Akabondo Akabondo,
Well done.
Christopher Burrows, Ping Kong Chun,
Well done.
Peter James Crozier, Stephen Harland, Kenneth Ying Kit Ho,
Well done.
Alexander Charles Howard, Guy Scott Hudson,
Well done.
Ka Mun Kwan, Glenn Mackey,
Well done.
Alan Howard Ross,
Well done.
Jan Charles Skirkowski,
Well done.
Adam Twymer,
Well done.
Jeffrey Martin White,
Well done.
Edward Hardy, Christopher Kenneth Jones, Craig Russell Maddock,
Well done.
Philip Meadows,
Well done.
and Mark Wooldridge.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of the University, I present to you, for the degree of BSc with honours in physics, Jonathan Samuel Bernstein.
Well done.
Jonathan Russell Brenchley.
Well done.
Terence David Bucknell. Alistair William Elon Dan.
Well done.
Christopher Stephen Hallmark.
Well done.
Samantha Jane Marsden.
Well done.
John Stephen Massa.
Well done.
Robert Frederick McGowan. Sean Murphy.
Well done.
Nicholas Andrew Swain.
Well done.
Michael Stewart Thurlow.
Well done.
Neil Mark Wannop.
Well done.
David Peter West.
Well done.
Paul Duncan Andrews.
Well done.
Timothy David Cleaver Bevan. Sally Ann Bottom,
Well done.
Sarah Margaret Byrne Cassidy,
Well done.
David Anthony Cowlishaw,
Well done.
Geraint Cooper Davies,
Well done.
Sally Ann Forbes,
Well done.
Roger Giles,
Well done.
Neil John Hawksford,
Well done.
Anita Christina Keogh, Catherine Joanne Kirk,
Well done.
Jane Elizabeth Latham,
Well done.
Neil Richard Lawton,
Well done.
Simon James Levy,
Well done.
David Luke,
Well done.
Connor Sean McMenamin,
Well done.
Barrett Palmer,
Good.
Anil Patel,
Well done.
Nigel Clive Rucroft, Ranulph Howell Scarborough,
Well done.
Stuart Soloway,
Well done.
Sean Richard Thomas, David Thornley,
Well done.
Patrick Anthony Tilley,
Well done.
Paul Gian Peter Tooley,
Well done.
Brian Wilson,
Well done.
Karim Amirali Alidina,
Well done.
Gareth David Beale,
Well done.
Tanya Jacqueline Bell,
Well done.
Simon Stewart Boynton, Ian Henry Burns, David John Carr,
Well done.
Christopher Rye Carter,
Well done.
Jennifer Ann DaCosta,
Well done.
Philip John Evans, Robert Allen Goodwin,
Well done.
Peter Anthony Grabo,
Well done.
Shane Jonathan Guy, Stephen William Hales,
Well done.
Richard Michael Haley, Toby Marcus John Hallward,
Well done.
Andrew Anthony Howard,
Well done.
Gary Hullock,
Well done.
Paul Dominic Davy Kilkelly,
Well done.
Catherine Anna Kuhn,
Well done.
Joanna Lake,
Well done.
Paul David Marsh. Diane Morrison.
Well done.
James Headley Palmer.
Well done.
Praful Patel.
Well done.
Sanjeev Kumar Rehan.
Well done.
Vincent Gerard Reddy.
Well done.
Sven Glenn Roden.
Well done.
Adam Julian Smith.
Well done.
Philip Stevens. Graham Richard Taylor.
Well done.
Nigel Robert Tuckley. Ian Weaver. Timothy Neville Brown.
Well done.
Andrew Philip Cook.
Well done.
Glenn Rachel Dawson.
Well done.
Victoria Louise Everton.
Well done.
Amanda Ann Catherine Fairclough.
Well done.
Duncan Lindsay Fortune.
Well done.
Neil Lydon Hanlon. Philip Glyn Jones.
Well done.
Jonathan Leslie.
Well done.
Neil Nasrallah.
Well done.
William Healy Wall. Christopher Windle.
Well done.
And for the degree of BSc in Physics, John Ernest Hayward Baxter.
Well done.
Catherine Mary Nolan.
Well done.
Stuart James Rossiter. And for the degree of BSc with honours in Physics with Astrophysics, Graham Arthur Bahan.
Well done.
Piers John Newman. Colin Martin Fisher.
Well done.
Timothy James Hewison.
Well done.
Michael John Byrne.
Well done.
Andrew William Duncan.
Well done.
David Keith Houston.
Well done.
Claire Louise Peerless.
Well done.
Thomas Bernard O'Kelly.
Well done.
Rosemary Lucy Yates.
Well done.
And for the degree of BSc with honours in Physics and Computer Science, Michael Gregory Brown.
Well done.
And Stephen Michael Wilson.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of the University, I present to you for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Physics and Electronic Engineering, David Alistair McLaughlin Smith.
Well done.
David Lawrence Jackson.
Well done.
Farid Salim Abdu. Thomas James Griffiths.
Well done.
Sean Raymond McKiernan.
Well done.
David Peter Nixon. Richard James Perks. Simon James Coates.
Well done.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of the University, I present to you for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Polymer Science and Technology with honours, Matthew Nicholas Sherratt.
Well done.
Kevin Joseph Frobisher.
Well done.
Nicole Kelly Hamill.
Well done.
Uma Prasit Sumrit.
Well done.
Rachel Kim Saxton.
Well done.
Michael Taylor.
Well done.
Martin Paul Crew.
Well done.
Michael James Hale. Sean Andrew Linton.
Well done.
And for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Materials Science, Charles Ellett Bream.
Well done.
Robert Ian Baxter.
Well done.
Christopher Thomas Byrne.
Well done.
Stephen Groves.
Well done.
Nicholas Philip Iasumi.
Well done.
Gavin Kain Wa Chen.
Well done.
James William Leggett. Sarah Morehouse.
Well done.
Alistair James Seymour.
Well done.
Jeffrey Allen Dean. And for the degree of BSc in Metallurgy with honours, Leslie Ann Lewis. Anne Helena McGuinness. Adam Coulter Rainford.
Well done.
Paul James Turner.
Well done.
Richard Julian Cabell. Darren Clark. And Ian Neil Wardman.
Well done. Salva sit universitas nostra mancuniensis, hoc precantes consurgamus. So now you're leaving the university and going out to start a career in the world. We here in the university wish you the very best of luck. We're sure you'll do very well. When you graduate, as you've just done, you join a body of university graduates called Convocation. This body serves two purposes. First of all, it allows us to keep in touch with you, and we do this by the publication from time to time of a magazine, which we call Manchester Graduate. It'll tell you what's happening in the university, what's new, what's going on, how we're changing, how we're keeping up with the times. But we also want you, through Convocation, or indeed by contact with your old professors and tutors, to let us know what you're doing, how you're getting on in the world, what your experiences have been. This is very interesting to us. Please don't neglect to do it. So now, the world awaits you. Good luck.